Wonderful. And I want to start by just saying thank you for everybody for attending this session. We are absolutely honored to have Ida Doyer here with us. And she's definitely, to some extent, and Ida, apologies now for referring to you as a unicorn, but a unicorn because of your expertise. And what I mean by that is, for those of you who don't know her, she is a qualified registered occupational therapist who found this absolutely magic within the world of sensory science. And she realized the absolute importance that this world could have in our adult world and in the work environment, and then registered as an IOP, or industrial organizational psychologist herself, and now is in a position to share with us some of these enormous amount of insights that she's gained throughout the years of her years of experience. So Ida, I do know that this is an absolute jam-packed session. I do want to thank you for sharing this with us, because I really believe in the magic of what it is that you found, I think, in this science. But I do also think, just a heads up for everybody else, there's a lot of content, and a lot of things that Ida is really trying to make practical for us today. So please engage with us. Please use the chat room. Please, there will be some questions posed to the audience as well by Ida. Engage with us, ask the questions, and we'll be also addressing some of the questions that you have throughout, but also then at the end of the session as well. So Ida, I don't want to waste any more of your time. And thank you for everybody being here, and over to you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Yanni. Thank you to Sandra, to all of JVR. But most importantly, thank you and welcome to each and every one of you joining me today at 4 o'clock on a Thursday afternoon in September. I appreciate your time. My brother-in-law always says, the problem with time is we think we have it. So I know that this is a huge honor. And what I wanted to ask you first and foremost, I trust that you are focused, attentive, calm, alert, optimally able to register and take in every single word I say, every single slide that I share. I trust you are bang on point in your optimal activation band, super motivated. And if you're not, why not? No. If you're not, you've come to the right webinar. I'm going to talk about the sensory scientific approach to living better lives, to be able to perform better. But I can also swap that around. If we're able to perform better, of course, we can live better lives. We have more time for our loved ones. And if we spend more time with our loved ones, coincidentally, we are able to perform better. So those of you who know and love me know that I'm all about balance. It's not about working harder. It is 100% about working smarter. So really, the misconception that our behavior and our performance and our ability to concentrate sit at top brain level is terribly incorrect. Behavior and performance are actually elements and aspects to sensory processing, and it sits at sensory brain level. So let's see what the sensory brain does in terms of alertness. So the bottom brain is the reptilian brain, the sensory brain, very primitive. The bottom brain is quite undisciplined. It wants to be comfortable. It wants to be safe. It wants to be unchallenged. So once we make sense of what's going on here at sensory bottom brain level, we can access the higher, more sophisticated parts of our brains. The midbrain, which is the limbic brain, the center of emotions, and then the top brain, our cognitive, clever, problem-solving, prefrontal cortex. That's where we want to be. What happens in the process of sensory integration or sensory processing is 4 things. We register environmental input. And this never stops. We register and we orientate to it. We register and we orientate to it nonstop. We can't hinder this process. Why? Because at this level sits survival of the species. So if we don't notice what's going on around us through our sensory systems, we won't survive. So registration and orientation impact directly our levels of activation, our levels of alertness. And our levels of activation and alertness directly impact our performance and productivity and output. The third and the fourth steps to after we've registered and orientated to sensory messages, we then respond or not respond. It's healthy for the brain to not always consistently respond. Sometimes the brain has to make environmental stimulation background stimuli or a habit. We talk about habituation. But if the brain does respond, of course, we want to see an appropriate functional adaptive response. And this is where other workshops lie in terms of excellent leadership styles, communication, conflict handling, how you work as a member of a team, your stress management, your behavior patterns, etc. But today's workshop, registration orientation all the time. And I just want you to think for a moment, is there any way that you can access your brain other than through your sensory systems? It is the only direct, effective, immediate entry point to access brain energy, to activate or to regulate. So if we know what we're doing at a sensory scientific level, if we know ourselves first and foremost, we can activate or regulate. And let me just illustrate this at a very simple physiological level. I would invite you to take a deep breath in with me, hold it for a bit, and exhale. Now, I want to remind you, as you keep breathing throughout the day for the rest of your life, that there's an activation and a regulation that happens even at physiological level. When we inhale, our heart rate and blood pressure increases ever so slightly. There's an activation. When we exhale, there's a trigger to the parasympathetic relaxation response where we are regulated. So throughout the day, there's a balance between activation and regulation. And this is what happens if we know what to do in terms of sensory environments, sensory strategies, and sensory activities that are just right for us, either activating or regulating. Oh, I want you to self-assess. We are going to be super scientific today. We're going to do a pre-webinar self-assessment, although I've said quite a bit already. But we're going to do a pre-webinar self-assessment and a post-webinar self-assessment. Grab a pen and a paper, if you would be so kind, because I want you to keep your scores and I want you to keep these 5 steps to pro performance right in front of you. And I want you to be brutally honest and give yourself a mark out of 10. Let's not go 100. Let's just do 10. Focus. Are you able to focus? Generally, how well do you focus? My focus is not bad. I'd give myself a 7. And registration's actually good as well. 7.5. So typically, coming from my perspective as the sensory sensitive with a low sensory work style and low sensory threshold scores, my focus and especially my registration, especially through eyes and ears, visual and auditory, is perfect, except when I'm overloaded, except when I'm tired, except when it's 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So keep that in the back of your mind and give yourself a point for focus, a mark for registration. Just write down behavior, but don't score behavior yet. I'm going to be the parent in the room, talking not the elephant, the parent in the room today, talking about behavior, because our behavioral patterns, our lifestyle choices can either enhance or hinder our performance. It's a fact. We all know that. So don't score behavior yet. And then calm alert activation. This is simply where your sensory brain is actually comfortable and regulated. That crocodile, that reptile is actually organized, regulated, happy. So you can access your calm emotions at midbrain level, and you can access your alert mind at top brain level. At the moment, because I'm quite sensory sensitive and I have low sensitive sensory threshold scores, noticing everything, myself, the environment, everything around me, other people, I'm a little bit less calm and a little bit more alert. But I promise you, at the end of the session, we would have swapped around. Then I would be very calm and not so alert at all. Let's look at motivation. So I'll score calm alert. The lowest for me is a 5. And then motivation's higher. I'm about 8.5. Motivation's complex because it consists of 2 parts, the big dream. We all have the big dream. We actually all have the big dream. We just need to unlock the big discipline to realizing the big dream. And this again sits at, how do we discipline the crocodile? First of all, we have to understand it. And today is all about that. Okay, keep that piece of paper in front of you. We're going to keep it scientific. And I want you to actually jot down some notes, pen to paper, don't type. Jot down some notes and really see whether we can increase these scores within this hour, 45 minutes. Behavior, right? We all know that we need to sleep. We all know this. We need to sleep. We need to sleep enough. We need to sleep early enough. We need to have uninterrupted sleep, deep quality sleep, preferably. And I actually want to make 4 statements around sleep. No, around screen time, but it impacts sleep. We're actually, at the moment, in our virtual world, in our digital world, with online meetings and screens, we are actually not calm. We are not alert. We are not sleeping, even if you think you are. And we are not recovering. Downtime, evening time, at the weekends, during our holidays, we are not. We are not. And this is the entry point. This is the science to leisure crafting and weekend crafting, but also performance crafting. Right, nutrition. Yeah, nutrition is amazing. We have to eat, we have to chew, but we have to eat the right types of food, obviously for our microbiomes with the brain-gut connection. I'm quite strict about that. For other people, I'm trying to be better myself. I'll underline nutrition right this minute. Please underline any of those that you think are actionable insights that you're going to try and improve ever so slightly. When I'm stressed, I want too much sugar, and I'm trying to discipline the crocodile accordingly. Nutrition is so important in terms of our microbiomes actually manufacturing our brain messengers, our neurotransmitters. So the brain-gut connection is huge. You can't feed your microbiomes burgers and chips and chocolates. They don't eat that. They only eat plants. And we have to aim for 30 different types of plant material per week. That's quite high to come by. But I want to urge you to just do snack loading. Do nutritional loading. When you do grab a rice cake, what can you add to your rice cake? If you do grab a smoothie, what can you add to your smoothie, etc.? It's so nice for my clients to actually hear this, because they need to keep this at the back of their mind. Many only eat protein and fats. Many only eat, coffee and shakes. So it's so important. Just pause for a minute at nutrition, because how on earth are you going to perform like a pro if you don't nourish and feed and love your nervous system and your brain? Exercise, not so much exercise as movement, and we are going to go into more detail in terms of movement and the movement sensory system. Movement is our regulation sense, and movement is therefore our performance sensory system. Assessing your Sensory Workstyle Assessment Profile scores, getting your movement score, and creating movement options and creating an exercise regime that is perfectly suited to your needs is a huge, possibly the biggest investment in productivity and performance. Sunlight, so important. We are so spoiled in South Africa. I know there are some delegates from the UK. We are so spoiled. We are so blasé over our sunshine and our vitamin D. If you are going to have your loaded snack full of nutrition, leave your phone at your desk and at least sit in the sun for mind, for mood, for calm and alert. Social connections, huge. I'm sure you all have read the longest longitudinal study conducted on happiness. To be able to live a happy and a long and a successful life, there's one common factor, there's one thing we all need for that, and that's social connection and social interaction. And there's actually talk of social buffering being one of our stress busters and getting us out of our own minds and out of our own space, able to perform again. And then, of course, oxytocin, the connection hormone that we'll talk about a bit later. Screen time, please, all of you underline screen time as an actual insight. We all have to do it. And I could just hear you saying, but I'm not on my phone, actually. I'm not really a phone person. If I want to connect with someone, I'll phone them and chat to them and go and see them in person. What are you doing now? What have you been doing all day up until this moment? What are you probably going to do tonight? The poor visual system is bombarded and in such overload. And screen time is something we can't get away from, but we need to manage it. We need to manage ourselves. We need to manage screen time so that it doesn't manage us. So yeah, I'm not too bad with the screen, but the time of day in bed just before falling asleep, trying to catch up, that's horrible because it impacts both sleep as well as just my general overload and calm alert and overwhelm. Motivation, of course, the two big Ds, the dream and the discipline. I do have a short recipe. I won't speak about it too long, but if you say to me, I am not motivated, then I want to know, but are you even moving? Are you sitting behind your desk not feeling motivated? There is the problem. Our movement system is our regulator. As soon as we have a change in head position through the vestibular organ in the inner ear, there's messengers connecting and firing directly and immediately with the reticular activating system, the RAS, R-A-S, and that makes us feel alert. That makes us feel like doing the job we don't feel like doing. I always say to my clients, also, please don't wait. Don't wait to feel like the motivation coming over you. It actually goes the other way around. Once we take action, once we start doing it for the dear dopamine that we deserve, dear means expensive, do it for the dear dopamine that we deserve, then the motivation comes. Weirdly, hey? Action, motivation follows our action. Sensory props are huge. Today is all about sensory props. Today is all about upping your performance from a neuroscientific sensory integration specialist perspective. And sensory props are they can either just make things faster, more effective, quicker, and more enjoyable, or not. And you need to know yourself to be able to use the right strategies and the right environments. The 45-minute rule, if you absolutely do not feel like doing something, bargain with yourself, say to yourself, if I spend 45 minutes on my tax today, without my phone, without any distractions, then I will grab a coffee with a friend. So really the motivation can be improved. I love the invite that Esty sent to this webinar where she said, Are you struggling to perform? Are you struggling to concentrate? Are you struggling to focus, register, feel calm, alert, and feel motivated because you are too stressed? Perhaps you are too bored, or perhaps you are too unsure. And this, again, the answers to this, the explanation to this, the management of this sit at sensory brain level. Fascinating, hey? Our sensory thresholds. I have a low sensory work style with low sensitive sensory threshold scores for visual, for auditory, for touch, and for vestibular changes in head position. Now, this often results in overload, overwhelm, fatigue, anxiety, stress. I want the environment and I want the day and I want the webinar to go just right, according to plan. And what also happens is there might also be that anxious procrastination where you actually can't get going, you actually can't get performing because it has to be so perfect. And you'd rather not try because you have that black and white thinking, the perfectionism, the detail mindedness, which is us. We are early starters, but when you get to the presentation, you're actually a bit pooped already. You've prepared too much. So it's fascinating to know this about yourself, to embrace it, to accept it, to have empathy. Like a little adjustment to the day would have been amazing for me, not for you, to have the webinar at 9 before sensory overload and overwhelm happened due to sensory accumulation. But for example, the 2 board high sensory workstyle employees, they are perfect now. The optimal performance band after lunch or around 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon sometimes hit because of sensory thresholds being reached and you having that window period. Of course, maybe some people have left the office, maybe there's less distraction, less interruptions. There are other factors that play as well. But we have to keep in mind that often the high sensory work style employees need more stimulation. And I even said to Yanni, you can't say to your organization, right, I am so understimulated. I'm so bored. You need to give me a new challenge and you need to optimize my skills. That's fine. We'll get to that. I'll get to management and leadership webinars as well, how to optimize your team. But every morning as a high sensory work style employee, you have to self-activate. The high work styles need more activation. The low work styles like myself need more regulation. So I train in the morning to manage my stress for the day to come. My husband trains in the morning to wake him up properly for the day to come. To ensure, these are often the medium work style employees with a neutral response. They actually have a minimal brain response to sensory input from the environment. This might be their overall style, but there are always fluctuations. There are always outlying scores which give you a lot of information and know-how around yourself. But I get lots of feedback from medium work style high-functioning top execs saying to me, that's exactly right. We are so accommodating, so flexible, so adaptable. We listen to everyone's opinions. We actually lose a bit of time in terms of our performance just enforcing a decision and rolling with it. So really lovely and empowering information to have about yourself and your team. Know yourself to manage yourself. The Sensory Workstyle Assessment Profile gives you this information right here. How quickly and how intensely do you register? Just because we all have sensory systems, we all have sensory receptors, does not mean they fire at the same intensity. And this sits at neuroanatomical level, at sensory receptor level, and there's no right or wrong. You haven't done anything to sort of become this. It is part of your genetic makeup. And often we have a couple of high sensory seeking scores, smell and taste and proprioception are my high more scores. And then often we have a majority low or medium or the other way around. So the high sensory work style employees need generally a lot more information at a higher frequency for a longer period of time before they can focus and register. Look at your two first scores. Focus and registration doesn't happen so quickly, so automatically. They almost have to self-activate first because before there's a strong focus and a strong registration. The low sensitive sensory work style employees only need a little bit of stimulation for a short period of time at a much lower frequency for them to focus and register intensely, see and hear what they need to see and hear, but also then those frequent work style breaks and evening breaks and lunchtime breaks that need to be optimal to re-regulate. Let's look at visual. Visual is, I'm so worried about visual because we're all on screens all the time, and it's a work sensory system. It's also information or a knowledge sensory system. So first of all, before we go any further, you have to know by doing your own sensory workstyle assessment profile, do you need more visual stimulation or do you need less? Do you need more visual regulation like myself, calming, inhibiting, gentle visual input? Or do you need more visual activation, visual interest, red rulers, red papers, red desks, black paper with gel pen, vertical workspaces, working against the shower door, whatever, as long as your visual system feels activated? What happens with the screens? Oi. And I have to show the brain flip again, and I know you've all seen it copious amounts of time, but you haven't seen it from a visual overload perspective. So illustrating the brain, this forearm illustrates my spinal cord. Here's my sensory brain, the bottom part of the brain, the reptilian brain, fight, flight, freeze, fight, flight, stress. And if I am going to break your septum, it would be with that part of my palm. The thumb folds in and represents the limbic system or the center of emotions. And then only do we fold our fingers over and we actually get access to our top brain structures, the gray matter, the prefrontal cortex. And this is where you are on point, baby. Sharp, calm, alert, optimal performance band. What happens with stress, panic, overload, overwhelm? But hear this, what happens with too much screen time is a brain flip. You become quite emotional and quite primitive. And even if you don't register this, even if you're not that bad, you're not what you could be emotionally, you're not what you could be cognitively. And what I actually initially thought is a bad thing about myself being so visually sensitive, it's actually a wonderful gift because a low visual sensitive threshold alerts me to visual overload. The neutral visual scores, and you have to go and take your assessment, the neutral and the high scores don't always feel it. They don't always register, and they go about their day in a brain flip, not having themselves 100% together. So if you don't take breaks, if you have high exposure to bright lights, blue lights, flickering lights, office lights, artificial lights, and clutter, if you're multitasking, which we are all doing visually, it's terrible, we shouldn't. And if you're sleep deprived, and if your office space or your environment does not allow for greenery, you need to absolutely go about like a neuroscientist and craft your leisure time and craft your work breaks for improved performance. Visual is amazing. We have to look after it. We have to look after it. We are the gatekeepers. I just want to explain to you in terms of my own visual system being so sensitive. When I write in my diary with a soft turquoise, I look back on that day, even a soft green or a soft light blue, I look back on that day and I think, that was quite a manageable day. What a good day. I actually had a nice day. When I'm an accident, use a red pen or a Lumo orange or a bright pink. I look back on that day in my diary and I think, oh, it was absolutely hectic. So really that's how we differ. And this is how we can use the eyes as an entry point into our brain to activate or to regulate according to what you need. Auditory, also word sense, eyes and ears. Do you hear what you need to hear? Who of you have stopped hearing me? I'm sure there's quite a few. And please don't put that in the chat box, but you can. If you're willing to say, I've zoned you out 20 minutes ago. But that would be a typical response, and I'm not offended. That's a typical response of a high-seeking auditory threshold, where you actually need more stimulation, more intensely, more arrhythmical, more unexpected. My voice is just too soft and too calm. But if you have a low sensitive auditory score, of course, you quickly go into overload and overwhelm. You quickly feel the environment's too much, and the anxiety and the stress, even depression. There's lots of research studies connecting auditory defensivity with mood disorders and a difficulty to concentrate. So it's really important to pay attention to what it looks like and what it sounds like. Unexpected noise, scrapey, unnatural, environmental noise. The World Health Organization cites environmental noise as quite a huge contributing factor to mental ill health. And that's why people are now, if we had money, we should do this, developing quiet forests and renting it out at astronomical prices because people are in need of silence, and it's possibly the low auditory individuals. Distractions are horrible, interruptions are horrible. What we can do, though, is we can adapt the environment. We can use earphones, close the door. Let me write a letter for you to get your own office space in the corner. But no, tongue in cheek, you can use auditory adaptations. And then, of course, self-regulation, taking the responsibility to be ready for the day to come. What was my breakfast? What was my sensory breakfast? What did I do during my work break? Am I making everything the company's responsibility now? Or am I actually managing myself through self-awareness? If you don't take breaks, if there's no bird song, if there's no music, for me it's gentle, calming, classical, no lyric music. For my husband, it's jazz, unstructured, unexpected, energizing. He needs more activation. And if you're not using other sensory systems, especially with a high-seeking auditory score, you are actually going to be dropping some balls. So the bird song's interesting. There's research showing that we associate birdsong with feeling safe. Now, if you think back on the brain, the sensory brain, the primitive reptilian brain, that brain wants to know, is Ida safe? If she's not safe, she can't listen. They want to know, is she safe? And then midbrain, emotional limbic brain, or the elephant, wants to know, is Ida loved, appreciated? And if the answer is yes, yes, you access your top brain and you are calm alert in your optimal performance band. So actually, birdsong is a really clever productivity strategy. Touch. Touch, smell, and taste I've grouped as social or team senses because it gives us so many interesting information around how we behave in a group, how we behave on a team, our proximity needs and preferences, our open plan office floor preferences, etc. But for today, I just want to take out my touch prop. For today, it's all about the brain and the skin being Siamese twins. So they come from the same clump of cells in utero ectoderm, and they split. And neuroectoderm develops into the brain, and surface ectoderm develops into the skin. So if you want to up your productivity, if you want to activate your brain, activate or regulate, you can use your touch or your tactile system. First of all, you need to know, do you need more or less? Do you need more regulating touch input like myself on my terms, my dogs, my family, my husband, my garden, my blanket, my hot bath? More regulating, or do you need more activating, more alerting, more energizing tactile input, which might be a head scratcher or a grip strengthener? These are fantastic if you are stressed out of your mind. I love them. I actually can't get enough of it. So touch is a productivity prop. We cannot underestimate the activating and the regulating properties of our skins. So if you have no props on your desk, if you never do any pen to paper note writing, if you have no exposure to nature, no exposure to pets, those office buildings allowing the little puppies to come and run around on the floor, they are enhancing and improving productivity, 100%. Why? Because of oxytocin. Oxytocin is secreted as soon as we have loving touch between loved ones and owner and pet, etc. And again, think about the primitive brain, the bottom brain, midbrain, top brain. If oxytocin is secreted, how do you feel? You feel safe and you feel loved, on point, calm, alert, able to perform, completely powerful. So we can't ever forget the brain-skin connection for optimal performance. I sometimes get clients saying to me, I'm very tactile. I'm very tactile. And then I chuckle because is it tactile because you're tactile seeking? Or is it tactile because you're actually tactile defensive or sensitive and you need more tactile, but your type of tactile to regulate you? So we need to have our own schools. My oxytocin machines, Finley and Gracie Kilborn, hugs and kisses, baby. They make me feel so good. There goes my focus and registration, up, up, up. I read an article about eye contact with your pets. If you have a loving gaze, obviously like they clearly have for me now and me for them, my oxytocin increased with 300% and their oxytocin by 130%. Now I wonder why, but anyway, it makes them more obedient. And I actually had the hypothesis it's because my husband and I are so obedient. That's probably where the 300 versus 130% comes in, because they are the madams of the house. Smell and taste, also team senses, but did you know that you can up performance and productivity effectively, quickly, without medication? Although I am pro meds, everyone knows that I'm pro meds. But without having to do anything hectic, you can just pay attention to smell and taste. Do you need more or less? Do you need more regulation or more activation? Often, touch, smell, and taste are so deprived. If you work in silo teams or remotely all the time, it's quite tricky to bring touch, smell, and taste into your workday. Remember I said I have high smell and taste scores. So what happens with high smell and taste scores, there can be an active response where you can't stop eating. You become sensory seeking. You want to eat when you're bored, stressed, happy, unhappy, working, not working. So that's me. I can't forget to eat. When you have a passive response to high thresholds, you forget to eat. You forget to drink. I have people saying, clients saying to me, "Ooh, I fetched my coffee at 9 o'clock this morning. By 11:30, it's gone cold. I haven't even seen it. I haven't touched it. I haven't been to the toilet. I haven't eaten. I haven't drunk anything." That could be high smell and taste threshold scores, and it could be really valuable to you as a person to learn to live a bit more healthily with more nutrition and more daily nourishment to your system and your brain. Smell Smell shortcuts through the back of our nose to the smell cortex, the olfactory cortex, and this little smell brain sits next to our hippocampus. And our hippocampus, a happy hippocampus, is important for optimal performance. I'll have you know. So we can activate our hippocampus through either activating or calming smells. You can use the soft lavenders, the feminine spa-like smells if you want to regulate. And you can use your clean smells like tea tree, eucalyptus, lemongrass, etc. if you want to activate. Then just getting back to taste, we have to eat. We have to eat. We know this, but we have to eat regular meals at breakfast. Please don't just have a coffee or a meal replacement shake or a smoothie. You can have this mid-morning, mid-afternoon, yes, with lots of ice. But please don't neglect to chew and to crunch away on that crunchy, chewy, crispy breakfast, lunch, dinner. Why? Because movement is activating. It activates us when we're lethargic and it calms us when we're stressed. And it provides an added mini movement to your passive day sitting behind your desk. My mum has just turned 84 and she is so scared of cognitive decline. So now, after she heard on RSG that you have to chew gum, she is on it. And she chews big balls of gum on her back molars, my child, at the back of your teeth. And she chews and chomps away on that chewing gum. And she's 100% right. There's smell involved, there's taste involved, there's movement involved, and she is activating her brain. She is. It works a charm. The tastes that are activating for performance are sour and bitter and spicy. And if you add ice to that, you are right as rain. So I really love office spaces where there are ice machines on every corner, everywhere. Everyone needs to be able to go and fetch themselves lemon water with a whole lot of ice cubes in, maybe a bitter dark chocolate station. No, now I'm pushing it. But you can pack your own dark chocolate, you can pack your own spicy nuts, and whenever you have something icy, it's terribly alerting. Movement is our performance sensory system. Do you need more or do you need less movement? Now, that is a big mistake in my slides because there's no such thing as needing less movement. We all need more movement. If you do show a low sensitive threshold score for movement on your SWAP, you are always sensitive to vestibular input, to changes in head position, never, ever, ever sensitive to proprioception, body movement, body position, body movement against resistance and gravity. We all need more of that. So some of us might need more regulating vestibular input, like myself sitting on a nest chair with my feet stabilizing on the floor and providing that gentle back and forth myself. That's quite alerting to me. More activating vestibular input would be your mountain bikers, your whitewater rafters, your bungee jumpers, your fast drivers. They need more vestibular, more strong, more frequently, almost every day, so that they can fully feel activated. What happens to us, all of us, our movement is too infrequent and too contained. If you say to me, Ida, I exercise in the mornings, but I'm not productive. Or I go for a walk at night, but I'm not productive. Then the problem is we have separated it. We have boxed it. Movement is not to be snubbed when you're sitting at your desk. What are the mini movements, the mini breaks? What are the break loading that you can engage in? What about flexi seating options? I love this. You have to have a vertical workspace with a whiteboard corner where you can collaborate and brainstorm and learn from each other and encourage each other. But what happened? You changed your head position. So your vestibular organ activated you. You changed your body position. So proprioception either regulated or activated you according to what you needed at that minute. And you changed your physical environment, which immediately increases your performance. The 20/1 was a Swedish study that actually assessed productivity and performance, and it improved by between 9 and 11% when for every 20 minutes that delegates or research participants were sitting passively, there was 1 minute of popping up into a half squat or performing stretches. This study was specifically squatting. I'm not going to ask you to squat right now. I usually do though. But even if you just look up and down 4 times, and over your left shoulder, right shoulder 4 times, you've engaged in activating, alerting changes in head position, which immediately ups your performance and your productivity. So we have 3 general sensory work styles. You'll find out which one you are, either high, medium, or low. You have to know yourself to manage yourself, to either activate or regulate. The low work styles, like myself, have more regulation needs, higher regulation needs. The high work style individuals have higher activation needs. I always laugh at my professor I work with closely when I talk about a client needing a lot of activation, high activation levels. He always says, is that a kick on the behind, Ida? It is a little bit, in a way, activating yourself with your cold shower, your 20 squat jumps, 20 push-ups, 20 sit-ups, 20 pull-ups, 20 star jumps, cold shower, bob to your music en route to work, eat your crunchy and chewy breakfast, have your iced lemon water on hand. So it's about the time of day and being able to scientifically craft and optimize the band. Your optimal, it happens few and infrequently, but the more you use these strategies, the more you'll get there. But it's really about optimizing the band. For example, for me, if I don't have to commute to work early on in the workday during peak hour, then I can have that early morning band of deep focus at home because I'm sensory sensitive, and then commute to work, for example, 10:30, 11, then spend a good few hours at work while taking a crunchy, chewy, crispy lunch with my colleagues, and then commute back not too late, have a swim, have a shower, spend time with Gracie and Finley, and perhaps work again early evening. There's so much science behind that. It is ridiculous how much information you gain and the intricate management of your team. It assists you to go about as a sensory informed manager. And on that note, I want to quickly say there is certification training on the swap. You can become a sensory informed manager or leader. Oh my goodness, now I'm worried. We have to reassess. Let's look at the focus registration, your behavior lifestyle. I'm sure there are actions that you need to take in terms of behavior. Let's look at calm alert. My calm alert's still 5 because now I'm no longer stressed, but I'm also no longer alert. Motivation. Do you feel you can bring in more discipline to achieve those big dreams? If you're comfortable, you can pop in the chat box which one of those you feel have possibly gone up, or which of those do you feel you'll be able to enhance and improve and boost. If we know what we're doing, we can be terribly productive. This is the assessment. You can contact JBR. There is a discount for all delegates today. And then Aristotle. I was surprised to read yesterday, that Aristotle apparently said the most outrageous, most inaccurate things about the brain ever, but I don't care, because Aristotle said Remember that other quote, there's nothing, the senses are entry points into intelligence. There's nothing in intelligence which did not first pass through the senses. I love that one. And here, the energy of the mind is the essence of life. And I think Aristotle understood that you can crank up or lower brain energy according to what your needs are, as long as you know yourself. Questions, comments?
Wonderful.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
I must be honest, looking at my ranking, I definitely seen calm alert going up, definitely seen motivation going up. And what you said earlier as well is crafting weekends. We were sitting just before this webinar, my husband and I were sitting thinking of what's going to happen this week. And I was saying, just not no people, please, I don't want any people. And he was saying, who can we invite? But actually sitting together, crafting what one needs from a sensory perspective, because we definitely have different needs, can be enormously valuable as a married couple as well. And I'm wondering, is there anybody that has any specific questions to ask Ida? I don't see any hands going up at the moment. I do, however, maybe have a 1, 2 questions from my own perspective. So I pulled up my own SWOP report prior to this webinar as well. And we're going through it again just to try and empower myself, because I do feel overwhelmed. And I'm for everybody to know, I'm 40 years old, I have 3 kids, it's very busy at work and at home, and I constantly feel overwhelmed. And again, just looking at the SWOP results, understanding what I can do and how I can be empowered, not waiting for a policy or a procedure or somebody else to assist me, but what is it that I can do? One thing that I do want to ask you, I do have a high score on working on work style, in terms of my own work style, sensory work style. So I do assume that there's a lot that I can take in, and that I need for activation purposes as well. But I do think that one then gets to a threshold where you are completely overwhelmed if you don't regulate that again.
Mm. Oh, Yanni, you're saying such a valuable thing in terms of high work style. I'm thinking about that element on the SWOP, because it's not a pure assessment of sensory comfort levels and sensory threshold scores. It does have a bit of a combo in terms of your work ethic, your own drivenness, your own midbrain, top brain, and learned behavior, and your own intellect and curiosity. And this, I think maybe somewhere we can put it in on the report as well. This should caution you, like you have now deducted. This should caution you that you can go like a Boeing. Keep going like a Boeing because of the intellectual stimulation and the work drive stimulation and your learned behavior at work. But that is detrimental to health, to stress, to fatigue, and especially if you're a mom. And tonight's not necessarily going to be peaceful and calm and quiet and contained.
I think there's a whole chapter and a whole webinar that one would need to do also around regulating and informing people, and because myself included here, is how do I take back control in what do I do? What are those strategies, that absolute practical things that I can do on a day-to-day basis? I mean, you showed some of them from taste, smell, movement. I've been walking up and down my garden to try and create movement for myself because I need it. I feel more productive when I have a meeting that's on Teams on my phone, for example. But again, how to regulate and plan for weekends to actually just make sure that one balances out again, So no, this is absolutely magic. I don't see a lot of questions, but I do think that there's going to be a lot of insights gained if they actually get their own profile. There's a different depth of understanding that you do get when you actually go through your own results and understand it for yourself, and then the importance of why it's so why it's so essential and powerful if you could understand your team and the people working around you, to optimally assist them in getting that calm, alert state of mind for them to be optimally productive as well. So no, thank you, Ida. I really wanna thank you for your time and your expertise. I do want to just highlight to everybody here, there's a CPD questionnaire that you need to complete for me if you want your CPD points. We'll be sending out the recording and all the information, and there's going to be a summary that Ida has put together that summarizes the highlights of the webinar as well, that will be sent out tomorrow morning. And then if you've got any questions to Ida, any questions to us, any request to do the assessment, for example, please reach out to us, and we'll connect you to Ida as well, but hopefully we can answer some of the questions. And you've got another 5 minutes back in your day.
Oh, this is refreshing. I think my
Yes.
performance and productivity was quite on point. I was
Yes.
worried. It was going to be too long. I actually wanted to make a joke and say to everyone, seeing as Yanni and Sandra, everyone's commenting about how jam-packed it is, I just wanted to check with them whether they saw it's now a 2-hour webinar. But I wouldn't have gotten the kick from the
No,
visuals, so I
you
thought
would have
let me
probably heard it.
leave this.
No.
Let me leave it. Yanni, just quickly to what we can do. There's such an easy little tip and tool. If you think about something that you can eat as a snack, it's quick. And if you think about a diet, sensory integration, occupational therapists talk about diets, sensory diets all the time. It's something you do a couple of times a week, 4, 5, 6 times a week. And if you think about ergonomics or adaptations or adjustments to your immediate environment, it's also something you can do. And if I take visual, a visual snack is literally to close your eyes and to practice deep breathing right there at your desk, or look at a photo of your pets or your kids. A visual diet would be to actually go for a run or to walk around in your garden without your phone and enjoy the greenery and nature a couple of times a week. And then a visual ergonomic would be clean, declutter, throw out, minimize, organize, adjust your device, for example, swing your desk, have a soft little blind. Those are all little environmental adaptations that are also, so you can break that up in each one of your sessions. And yes, we should have a webinar on behavior and snacks, diets, and ergonomics.
Absolutely. Sorry, I know that I've been becoming an avid birder recently, and for my 40th birthday, my husband gave me a camera because I said to him, I really enjoy going out into nature and just looking for birds, listening to it, and then trying to identify them, capturing them. And I absolutely believe that the love stems from a sensory need to be outside and to be visually not in front of screens, to be moving, and that there's some stimulation in it, that the origins of the hobby actually stems from a sensory need.
It does. You're 100% right. It does. Well done. Have fun doing that.
Absolutely, and thank you, everybody. There's a lot of thank yous in the chats, and a lot of just saying that it was helpful. There are questions around price. We will be sending that through in tomorrow's email as well. Very cost-effective assessment, so we will send that through for everybody to take a note of as well, and a sample report for you to get a feel for the type of information that they get. But on that note, thank you so much, Ida. Appreciate it, and go and have that warm bath that you need.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Yanni. Have a good
Thanks so much.
evening.
You too. Bye.